The following presentation is a production of Ride the Wave Media.
We are those guys. We hope to be your guys, bringing you the latest from around the National Football League with, again, mini camps now underway. We put OTAs behind us. Not training camp, but mini camps. Just a little get-together, some exercise, and some notable no-shows that we'll get to in due time. I'm Alex Hardy, joined as always by, far from a mini personality, it is Nick Ferguson, former 10-year NFL safety, the biggest personality on this show. Nick, what's going on, my man?
Hey, man. It is great. It is the summer. It is time for Clementine lemonade. If you drink that, time to put your feet up and look at those summer blockbusters.
Clementine. I know it's stone fruit season, but I didn't expect to hear any talk about clementines. What is Clementine lemonade, Nick?
You never had that? I think that's what it's called.
Just juicing a clementine and adding sugar to it?
Yes, that's exactly what it is, right?
It seems like it's closer to orange juice than lemonade, though, because lemonades, you need lemons.
Hey, listen. Yes, you do to make lemonade. But to make orange juice or fresh squeeze, whatever, you just squeeze the juice out of it, add a sweetener, water, stir and mix it. We off and running.
Good on you. Kudos to Nick Ferguson, our lifestyle guru, who will say sweetener because sugar is the devil.
Yes, it is.
So if you hung out with some of my in-laws' families, some of their relatives, or other fans of the Pittsburgh Steelers, they may consider Mike Tomlin to be the devil because better the devil you know than the one you don't, as far as the Rooney family is concerned. A new 3-year contract extension for Mike Tomlin, signing him through the 2027 season. I should note the second of back-to-back 3-year contract extensions, which in the last 7 years for the Steelers head coach, no losing records, of course, but no playoff victories as well. So we're talking about a divide between the local and national narrative of what the expectations are in the Steel City, playing in the most competitive conference in the National Football League, maybe the most competitive division there is with the AFC North. So, Nick, I'll start with you. I believe still in the league when Mike Tomlin became a head coach, so that is important to note. We love long-tenured coaches that have some connection to our own Nick Ferguson, because as time goes on, the further and further you've been away from the playing field. But I just there's so many feelings to have where, as someone not ingrained in that city, it seems like a no-brainer to keep Mike Tomlin there. But maybe you can dig into why others may be upset about keeping things the same in Pittsburgh.
Well, the reason, Alex, that people are upset about keeping things the same, because everyone wants change. When things don't go well in a team that has been to the Super Bowls, and just think about the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? This is one of the better organizations in pro sports because they've only had 3, count them, 1, 2, 3 head coaches in their team history. That's right, 3 fingers right there.
Well, back to 50, the last 55 years, I think, is the stat.
Yes. So with this team, and knowing as though they're in, just like you said, they're in a tough division, if not the toughest division.
I think so.
Football, right? So with that being said, the wins are not going to come as frequently as you want. And just think about, Mason Rudolph was there. You had Mitchell Trubisky, who was there, and you had Kenny Pickett, who was there himself. None of those guys are with the team at the quarterback position. And they're saying, look, right now we're turning the page with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, and these are going to be our quarterbacks of the future. So while some are upset, I am not as upset. And I've had a chance to talk to Mike Tomlin when I was working for the 49ers, and we were there in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, and his approach to the game is kind of different from any other coach, considering the fact that he comes from that Tony Dungy tree. And we know there's a different perspective in how you approach the game, but more so, how do you approach your players? I've never seen a coach that can get his guys as motivated as a Mike Tomlin could. But his only problem was he had issues at the quarterback position, which he hopes are somewhat finish by having Fields and having Russell. But with that being said, the Rooney family say, look, man, why are we going to break tradition? Right? There's 31 other teams who are trying to figure it out. And some teams get a head coach every 2 years, maybe every 1 year, right? But we know what we stand for: running the ball and playing great defense. With Arthur Smith there now, they're going to get back to what they were when, you had Jerome Bettis there, actually running the ball. And they got some great talent at their running back position. So, yes, this was warranted. Extend the coach. See what happens. Because if you parted ways with Mike Tomlin at this point, Alex, what direction are you going? Where? Who? For what? That's all I'm saying.
Right. You're in competition with the likes of the Carolina Panthers for Dave Canales, or you think maybe Pittsburgh would uproot their entire infrastructure to go compete with the Chargers to go get Jim Harbaugh. It doesn't make sense to me. And again, I've been able to watch each and every Steeler game with Steelers fans to understand, yes, there's absolutely fatigue there. Mike Tomlin is the one remaining piece, right? They changed general manager from Kevin Colbert to Omar Khan. They've had the revolving doors of Matt Canada and now Arthur Smith at offensive play calling after Big Ben used to handpick his guys. I think the one consistent piece that's there has been Mike Tomlin, who failed to address the issues at quarterback when Ben Roethlisberger was in decline. And for some fans, part of that is, well, we've been bad enough to need a quarterback, but not good enough to be able to draft one. And if your belief is, well, we should be losing more of our games, we should be losing 9-10 games instead of winning 9-10 games, well, then clearly you don't love football as much as Mike Tomlin does. And I know for a fact that in general, for a guy that's now the longest tenured head coach for the same team, you don't love football more than him. So the Steelers have identified that Mike Tomlin is going to replace a number of Chuck Noll records. And that is upsetting for a fan base that, many of whom grew up with the Steel Curtain and watched 4 championships. Tomlin has one championship. And to quote Cam Hayward from earlier today, there aren't too many Super Bowl winning head coaches left in the league. And, he's at, 18 seasons now. In 3 years, he'll be 21 seasons with the Steelers. Would just need a couple more to pass Chuck Noll. He's at 173 career wins. If he goes 7-10 each of the next 3 years, which again, he's never done, he's been always better than that, he'll pass Chuck Noll at 193 career wins. And Tomlin is second all time with active head coaches behind Andy Reid with wins overall. So the Steelers are more than happy to cement Mike Tomlin as their longest tenured, most successful coach. And people are kicking and screaming at the idea of stability. And I'm saying people being some Steeler fans, some people on the outside, just not really respecting how hard it is to remain competitive with the pieces that they had at quarterback and the injuries that they sustain on the defensive side of the football. Like, they've gone from Super Bowl contending with a healthy TJ Watt to downright bottom 5 overall when he's been hurt. And it's a very narrow path to walk. And when you're on the tightrope that is the AFC North, it is just hard to come out of that unscathed and in a position to win playoff games. I don't know, Nick. I can understand, getting blown out in the COVID season, getting embarrassed by Baker Mayfield on your home turf against your rival Browns. Their last 2 playoff losses were to Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Like, the rubber's going to meet the road. This is a league of have and have-nots, and they do not have that franchise quarterback. And they're taking new approaches, firing Canada mid-season and taking veterans on 1-year prove-it deals, and Wilson and Fields, as you mentioned. I don't know how this team gets better replacing Mike Tomlin. So ultimately, I think the Steelers are doing the right thing.
They are, and this is par for the course, is it not? I mean, he's one of the longest senior coaches in the NFL. And in his 17 seasons, he doesn't have, guess what? A losing freaking record. Right now, I mean, Pittsburgh
has 17 years, right?
They hadn't been to the playoffs, and you don't go to the Super Bowl. But once again, this is the pressure associated with winning, right? When you win, the fan base expects for you to get back there. And when you think about some of the top organizations and fan bases in the NFL, Pittsburgh Steelers are right up there. If they're not number one, they're number two because that fan base travels well and they're watching what's happening around the NFL. All right, your guy is out, Bill Belichick, with the New England Patriots, and we've seen so many older coaches that are out. And I'm not calling it ageism, but we've seen an influx of younger coaches. So a lot of fans saying, hey, I want that shiny new toy, but that shiny new toy might not be the right culture fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I will add this as well. When you look at diversity in the NFL, no one in the NFL does it better than the Pittsburgh freaking Steelers. And to know that Mike Tomlin, being a long tenure minority coach in the league where you don't have enough minority coaches, one, getting jobs, two, getting interviews. So for me, that's the biggest story, Alex.
Yeah, no, it's special. For the namesake of the Rooney Rule itself, that was what Mike Tomlin was brought in, and 18 years ago blew away the Rooney family, and he's remained a constant, winning a Super Bowl in his second season, and understanding that the standard is the standard. That's what Mike Tomlin says, and the standard for this fan base is postseason success. We preached 55 years, 3 head coaches. However, 7 years without a playoff win is the longest drought for this team within that 55-year span. So the expectation is what it is. The standard is the standard, Mike Tomlin. And we just have to have hope that they get some kind of spark from this offense that has been bottom 5 each of the last 2 years with that quarterback play, failing to replace Ben Roethlisberger. And again, it's hard to do. You mentioned my Patriots. You mentioned plenty of other teams. The New Orleans Saints, a great example. Having a Hall of Fame quarterback steadying the ship and elevating the talent around him for as long as that they did, you don't replace that guy overnight. And in 2-3 seasons, Pittsburgh still hasn't done it. They're in plenty of competition with a lot of teams. I just have faith in the moves that they made this offseason. Patrick Queen already said it's a better atmosphere just spending a couple of months in Pittsburgh compared to 4 seasons in Baltimore. And he also added that the food is better in Pittsburgh as well. I guess he's just not he's not a crab guy. He's not a crabby guy now in Pittsburgh. The Jets were looking to change their culture as well. I highlight them because they've got the biggest high-profile minicamp absentee, I guess I want to put it, with Aaron Rodgers not showing up for the first day of minicamp after he was there for OTAs. Robert Saleh discussed that both he and Hassan Reddick, the newly acquired pass rusher from the Eagles, were absent due to personal reasons. They were unexcused absences, according to Saleh. Rodgers was absent for an event that he said he did not want to miss. It was, quote, very important to him. And we can do this with the Cincinnati Bengals and T. Higgins and CeeDee Lamb and the Cowboys and, guys that are missing mandatory mini camps because of contract disputes. But, Aaron Rodgers could lose $50,000 on a brand new contract extension that they gave him after coming over from Green Bay. And, the New York Post, they do what they do. I have to give credit to Brian Costello. The Jets have gotten the full Aaron Rodgers experience, except for the wins, Nick. Talk about your former team and really mini camps overall. What Rodgers is missing out on other than it seems like some pocket change for a multi-millionaire quarterback.
All right, let's be totally honest. $50,000, that's a lot of freaking money. But not if you're Aaron Rodgers and you're making the money that you're making, because he'll make that up on the back end. And let's be totally honest. You said, well, he attended OTAs. Why do you need to attend the first day of mandatory minicamp? I mean, even let's just say he misses minicamp, period. It gives Tyrod Taylor and Travis Jordan, if he is somewhat feasible where he can get on the field, opportunities to learn the offense just in case something happens to Aaron Rodgers. And don't forget, we saw Aaron Rodgers only 4 plays to start the season. So this is opportunity for those guys. So if you think about it in a different way, this is Aaron Rodgers giving a gift back to those guys. But the main point, which everyone is up in arms about, an unexcused absence, and Aaron Rodgers saying that wherever he's at, it is some place that he has to be. Do you think Nathaniel Hackett, Robert Saleh, and Joe Douglas are really going to say anything about it? If they were not asked about it, they wouldn't even really bring it up. And to be totally honest, what are you going to do if Aaron decided he wasn't going to show up to minicamp? You just going to find him and just like, he'd be like, whatever. It's not really going to faze him because this is Aaron Rodgers. And the Jets are depending on Aaron Rodgers to really elevate them and take them to a whole different level. Look at the offensive line and how they retooled that offensive line. Look at what they were able to do defensively. You mentioned Hassan Reddick, who comes over from Philadelphia. This is a team in the Jets that are ready. Like we talked the last time on the show, that when we look at the AFC, especially the AFC North, you say, well, okay, who's going to be those top teams? And I told you it was going to be the Jets for these obvious reasons. So there's no reason to panic. I just say, I'm going to give you the Aaron Rodgers. Hey, just relax. Just relax.
RELAX.
Just relax.
It's June. We're not supposed to be focused on football, Aaron Rodgers included, right?
Right. And think about this. Here's the last thing I add. I mean, who runs that offensive ship anyway? I know Nathaniel Hackett is the offensive coordinator, but guess who's calling the freaking plays when they're on the field? Or if Hackett calls a play and Rodgers don't like it, he's going to wave it off. He's going to call his own play. The same thing he did in Green Bay. So what are we talking about?
So not as important with that in mind for him to be there now compared to when we get to training camp this summer. Is it, I mean, break down minicamp for me and our audience. If it's just install, if it's, again, there's some continuity with Nathaniel Hackett, but you said new offensive lineman, they added Mike Williams and they drafted Malachi Corley to that offense. And we can do this across any team that made free agent or drafted additions. This minicamp period is really the first mandatory, fully integrated practice with rookies, with veterans. What are we looking to accomplish in this short time before we break and come back for training camp this summer?
Well, usually at minicamp, the level of competition revs up just a little, right? Because this is kind of the precursor to getting to, training camp. But going from OTAs, doing several weeks of OTAs and getting to minicamp, all you're doing is just kind of going over that first day install. Right? Everything that you install, like day one, day two, you're just repeating that. And just think about the offense itself, right? Even though Aaron was hurt last year, he still had the earpiece in his ear trying to see what Zach Wilson was going to do on the field. And we even saw that GIF, whatever they want to call it, where Aaron Rodgers heard the call that was called in to Zach Wilson, and he was just thinking like, oh, that's not a good play. So he already knows an offense that's been put together for him in Green Bay. So if he missed the first day, hell, let's just say he missed the first 3 days of mandatory minicamp this week, who gives two nickels about it? He knows his offense inside out, but it's only being talked about because it's a slow offseason and we need something to talk about.
Well, we can do Amari Cooper not showing up for the Browns. We can continue to do these wide receiver contract extensions that won't be coming for the likes of CeeDee Lamb or Dak Prescott saying he's a gambling man. No, not that kind of gambling man. No.
Kenny Rogers?
It's all, these offenses looking to get ready for the season. You have to know when to hold them. You have to know when to fold them. You have to know when to walk away. And you have to know when to run.
Yes.
You better. So we can continue talking about green jerseys if you want, because Gang Green had their issues, or according to Nick Ferguson, lack thereof issues. We don't sweat these things in the month of June, and I guess we're not going to sweat a Friday international game in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, between the Packers and the Eagles. We've got our Peacock exclusive coming to you live from South America, and a NFL statement after Josh Jacobs was on the Greenlight podcast with Chris Long, former Eagle and Super Bowl champion himself, saying that he was worried about something to do with gangs, no teams wearing green, getting police escorts everywhere they go throughout the city, something that he was concerned about, only for the NFL to fire back themselves with the following statement, despite what you may have read online and despite what you may have heard from Josh Jacobs, shots fired, whose voice gave credence to rumors considering his Green Bay Packers will be playing against the Eagle in Brazil. Quote, "You will see a stadium full of fans wearing green of the Eagles, that Kelly green, and the green of that Packers moldy green cheese." Coming from the NFL. Some of the emphasis is from yours truly. So I guess this whole international fiasco that was almost started for the Sao Paulo game, my apologies, I had it right the first time, had to do with the home soccer team, Corinthians, their soccer rivals, Palmeiras, wear green, which the stadium has an informal ban. The football, the soccer team plays, but not when the National Football League comes to show. NFL saving face after Josh Jacobs almost puts the crown jewel, the international game, in jeopardy for the NFL, Nick.
Well, I mean, here's a case of, information traveling at warp speed, Mr. Sulu, but I guess getting to its receipt point not as well refined as it should be, because I listened to Josh Jacobs' comments. Was it alarming when I first heard it, and did it kind of increase the level of scare for players or people planning on attending? Absolutely. But what we know from Brazil, look, certain places there you don't want to go. But here's what I know about the NFL. They do it on all international games. They do it for Super Bowls. Hell, they do it for just regular season games. They make sure they scout these areas out. They make sure there's a high level of security. And if the team is playing in Brazil, and we have two teams, and this is the NFL trying to expand the brand, they always send people out there weeks, months, years before to plot out areas to say, hey, this is where players are going to stay. This is where players can't go. And if you are in a foreign country, obviously they're going to give you the rules of the land and say, look, if you're going to go here, make sure you go together. Make sure you go with security escort, if that is the case, because this is still considered an international game, and we don't want an international incident. And oh, by the way,